In this episode of Two Tall Guys Talking Sales, Kevin Lawson and Sean O'Shaughnessey sit down with Joe English to unpack why so many good companies still struggle to achieve profitable growth. You'll hear a sharp discussion on the 4 pillars that drive scalable revenue generation: go-to-market strategy, people, process, and execution, and why sales success rarely comes from talent alone. The conversation also tackles a mistake that quietly stalls growth in many firms: weak messaging that fails to reflect the real value customers actually buy. If you want stronger sales management, better sales processes, and a clearer path to sustainable growth, this episode will give you practical thinking worth staying for.
Success is determined by the eyes of the beholder. And what's fun about today's discussion and the things we're going to go through is we're here with a professional that not only understands how to build badass sales systems, but one who understands why you're building them and why they're geared towards growth. Today, we're joined by Joe English with 360 Consulting out of the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area. And Joe, we're glad to have you here. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen. It's been a goal of mine to get on your podcast. So here we are. Let me check that box now.
That's awesome, Joe. I would love that we were able to satisfy your goal. Our podcast is continuing to grow. We are in the month of March. We'll probably break a record on our listenership. So thank you for being part of it. And hopefully we can teach our community a little bit more about sales. One of the things we talked about before we hit record was the idea of growth in order to build a more profitable company. And a lot of the companies that I work with, that I know that Kevin works with, and I'm sure you do at 360 as well, is companies that haven't figured out how to grow at the level that they want to. They have some good products, they have maybe some good processes already, but not everything's working 100%. And they're looking out on the horizon and say, we're just not growing as fast as we probably should, or at least that our business model wants us to, or maybe our banker wants us to. So what's your thought process on talking a owner of a company or an existing VP of sales, if you're going to be advising them, how are you going to set up a company for growth and, more than anything, profitable growth? What's your first step in that conversation?
That's a great question. And it's a home run question for me and for all of us here at 360. So yeah, growth is super important for any business, right? You're growing or you're shrinking. Because even if you're still maintaining, somebody else is growing. So technically you're shrinking. We love the idea of having a great system, right? And so many people think sales is about, you have a gregarious person or set of people who can go out and talk, type A's. It's more than that, right? It's the art and science. And so we're really strong on the science part. So we believe, and I learned this in my corporate life and have done a lot of it in my consulting life, and we're really centered around the system. We think there's 4 foundational pillars to growing a business. And if you looked at it, it's go to market, it's people, right, in the organization, it's the process, what happens along the path from it's just a name out there to it's a paying client. What are the stages and steps you go through, and then what needs to happen along that path? And then if you thought about the straw that stirs the drink, it's the execution component, right? That 4th pillar takes the first 3 and puts them into a flywheel effect. And that's how you get growth. Listen, we all love the idea of Good to Great, Collins' book back in the day. So many really good businesses out there, but then they hit an inflection point, and that growth is, how can I do more? It's usually hero dependent. The owner operator is the rainmaker. And it's not that they haven't done everything to try to grow it even more, maybe even hired people, but they don't have a proper system they can plug people into that's repeatable, that does allow for, and I think there are 3 of us here who actually know what the acronym EBITDA means. So it has to be profitable growth. It can't just be growth for growth's sake. There's got to be that profit component, because it's really about what you can put in the bank at the end of the day as you grow the business. It's not just for revenue.
Absolutely. So when you think about those growth levers and you approach any business, I love to get the outsider's perspective on what are you looking for first and what are you looking for second to make sure you've got a firm foundation for growth? Because you're talking about your growth flywheel, and the Collins, the hedgehog, the hockey stick, and the humility, like they're all there together. So walk me through your 1, 2, 3 punches there.
That's a good question. So we have with our proven process, and we're believers similar to EOS or scaling up or any other system, you should have a proven process. And for us at 360, we have what we call our 3-phase approach. And in phase 1, we plug in as advisors to learn that everything a client has talked to us about that they're stressed about is actually what's going on. And typically we might reprioritize, but we've developed a scope. And we get to an inflection point where we've learned the key things, and then we do a series of workshops. And so to your point, what do we look for in those workshops? What are the foundational items that are going to build out those 4 pillars? For us, it starts with the ICP. And that's similar to a lot of marketing folks. There's definitely some overlap there, but a lot of times they'll start somewhere else, right? But we think knowing who is your best customer and why, and who isn't and why not, is just foundational, right? From there, you'll dig into a little bit of buyer personas and such, but that's all part of that ICP. But once you get from there, it's then that the value propositions of the business. What problems do you uniquely serve in your marketplace and why? And how are you going to message and communicate that? And for us, that's a tactical approach. So it's not the marketing side, right? It's not how do we turn that into our web page and our collateral? It's no, how do we have conversations and tell stories to clients that are relevant to them, not us pitching. So pitching is our least favorite word in sales for 360. We think that's more for agencies to do. And then the third one is that sales process. What do they actually do today? Because everybody has a process. They probably don't have it documented very well, and they probably don't follow it with consistency and vigor, but they do something. So we just want to understand what is it that they're actually doing, and then we'll bring in best practices to fine tune that.
It's interesting you say that. I've had a client before, and so I'm not going to name them here on the show, of course, but I had a client before that thought they were selling one thing. But when I started asking about how their customers used their product, their service, I was like, are you sure that you actually are selling the right thing? Because your customer is using your tool to do something different than what you're talking about.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever seen that situation, which so they're trying to figure out why aren't we growing? And I'm going, because you're talking about the wrong thing. You're not actually talking about what the value is that the customer gets from your product. And therefore your pitch is a little bit odd. And I use the word pitch there. I like the word pitch, but that's okay. So what do you think about that? Not the word pitch, but what do you think about that?
No, I think you nailed it. In some businesses, I'm sure you two gentlemen have seen this, especially in the technology space, which I spent most of my career in technology in my corporate life. And I'm all over the map now, but we see this a lot, especially if you thought about like the MSP arena, where there's this, it's almost like a challenge. It's like NASCAR. How many logos can I put on my webpage? And so there's a little bit of all things to everyone there. And what we try to do is help them focus on, no, what does your best client look like? And what problems are you uniquely solving for them, so that it's a very comfortable conversation when you're talking to prospective clients. There's something you're just like your sweet spot. What are you great at? Now let's focus on that. And when you've got that, just that swing is grooved and you're just killing it, then add something to it. But don't try to be all things to everyone.
So it's interesting when you get all things to everybody, and this is the sales operations coming out of me, change management, right? Because you've got a ton of people doing things because they've always been that way, or that's the way we've always done it, or we've never done it that way before, kind of phraseology. When you're working with these companies, what's the sweet spot for you to get them to pivot or change, get the lever to change their spots when they're selling differently?
It's a good one. Yeah. Change management is far and away the biggest issue for any organization because it's people. And what's the biggest challenge in any organization? People. So one of the things we do, we're certified in predictive index. And so we do that early on so that we have a read on the people and are they in the right roles? Again, back to Collins, right? People, right seats. on the bus. But that also gives us a perspective on their personalities a little bit and just how do we coach them. And so it's meeting people where they are and then understanding their own comfort zone. And so if you looked at their concept and self-concept on a PI readout, you understand if they're really comfortable doing what they're doing, great. But can you get them to be focused? It's no different than a CRM conversation, right? For those that historically haven't loved using the tool, it's having the conversation around how does it enable them to be better and faster and more efficient without having to have a meeting to relay information every single time, because the information is just there and it just passes forward. And then we can make better decisions because we have better data. So it's finding a way to communicate to people why this makes sense and it's good for them. It's not good for us. It's good for them and it will make them better. So we talk a lot with the individuals at clients around, look, we're here to make the business better. And obviously the owner operator brought us in, but trust me, we're here to make you better. Because if you're successful in your role, it just makes everybody else more successful. And we live to that. It's not just words, right? We really want to help. My greatest accomplishment in my corporate career was the number of people I put in President's Club. It's not how much revenue did I generate. It's how many people became successful underneath me. And it's because they're great. All I did was show them a way to be great. So that's our approach.
I love that concept. So interesting. Before you arrive at a client, do you think that most of the owners have that philosophy for their salespeople? So that's one part of the question. My other part of the question is, how do you think that in most of your clients, the sales team, the best team in the company, or is professional services the best team, or manufacturing, or accounting, or whatever they sell, or internal processes? So is the sales team usually the best team, but really does the owner really think of my job is to make you great as opposed to my job is to build a company that I can sell?
That's a really good question. So to tackle that first part, I think most owner operators, when they get into it, they start a business based on something they did and they're really good at it. And they do build successful businesses. Otherwise, they wouldn't get to a point of needing to scale, grow beyond a certain level. But I don't think they want success for their people. Most do. That's just the nature of who they are. But they don't know how to structure it so that those people can be as successful as possible outside of, in my experience, the thing that they did. If they were an operator, they know how to make their operators successful because they know what made them successful, but they don't know about those other functional areas of the business to structure it properly. But that's also why we end up getting engaged. So whether it's a CFO or a business coach or someone like that might refer us in, they see that. And then that owner operator, Humble Henry, is willing to say, I don't know what I don't know. And yes, I could use help there. So they want the help to allow their people to be more successful. The second part of that is sales the best. That's completely dependent upon the organization and that owner operator and how they've structured it up to a point. So operating organizations founded by somebody who used to be in, that's usually the best group, is the operating group. Whoever runs operations has a typically well-oiled machine, and sales is typically an afterthought. And it's a shared responsibility. A lot of our clients don't have structured sales organizations with 3 to 6 or 10 people actually in that role. If it's a professional services group, that services delivery model that they have, because that's typically where they come from, is super strong. In that world, they probably do know how to sell a little bit. So it very much depends upon the marketplace and the vertical that they're in and what they're delivering as to if they have somebody in leadership that had a sales background, then yes, usually sales is in pretty decent shape. They just haven't figured out how to take it to the next level.
Wow. And you know what the best thing about taking it to the next level is? We took it right to the level of 15 minutes, which is our commitment to our listeners. Joe, I love this kind of micro view of what goes on in a consultant's mind
Mm-hmm.
and what goes on in a change agent's mind. So for somebody who wants to continue that conversation with you, what's the best way that they can get in touch with you so they can continue the conversation with Joe?
Sure. It's Joe at 360consultingdfw.com. We have to put a DFW on it because it's not the most original name in the world, 360 Consulting.
Fantastic. Joe, the 15 minutes goes by in a flash. I hope that everyone out there in listener land has jotted down some really great notes. And if you're driving, when you get to your destination, grab those things from Joe: the process, the plan, the why, the what is my organization, why was it founded, and what is the strongest department? Where can I apply best case, best practice thinking? So, Joe, you've been an incredible guest. Thank you for being here with us. And for everyone else out there, happy selling.
What a sharp episode this turned out to be. Practical, disciplined, and full of the kind of thinking that actually helps companies grow. One point that really stood out was Joe English's framework around the 4 pillars of growth: go-to-market, people, process, and execution, because that gives leaders a way to diagnose whether they truly have a sales engine or just scattered effort. That idea matters because too many companies assume growth is a talent problem, when in reality, it is often a system problem, and Joe laid out a clear method for seeing the difference. Just as important was the actionable takeaway from this conversation. Step back and test whether your messaging matches the value your best customers actually receive. Because if you are describing one thing while customers are buying for another reason, your sales process is already off course. That is worth doing today, not next week, because once the normal rush of calls, meetings, and follow-up takes over, this kind of strategic correction gets pushed aside again. If this episode helped sharpen your thinking, make sure you subscribe to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales on your favorite podcast player so you do not miss what Kevin and Sean bring you next. And if you need help with sales, sales management, or simply growing your company, reach out to Sean or Kevin using the contact information in the show notes. You should also check out the B2B Sales Lab, a community built for salespeople and sales leaders who want better answers, stronger resources, and more consistent success hitting quota. You will find that link in the show notes as well. Be back with us for the next conversation when the next round of practical sales insight drops. Happy selling!